Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. This week we left off last week in Norfolk, so we just went through the naval station there. It was a fun trip. I always enjoy that area. And this week we're going to start our trip up Chesapeake Bay. So we actually ended up staying for about a week in the Hamptons, or in Hampton. We always stay right next to the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. It's reasonably protected there. So then we started heading up Chesapeake Bay. We made it all the way past Mob Jack Bay here, and we made it up to Jackson Creek, which is right by Deltaville. So it can be a little tricky to get back into Jackson Creek. It's not anything difficult, but you know, if you're not paying attention, you can run aground here pretty easily. But we were only staying for one night, so we did not go back into Jackson Creek. And it was going to be relatively calm, so we just stayed right outside. You definitely wouldn't want to stay here if there was any sort of wind, but it was calm that night. So from there we got up and we continued our way north, and our next stop was Mill Creek. And this is just south of the Potomac, so the Potomac is up here, and we stayed just south of that in one of our favorite anchorages, and that is in Mill Creek. So we came back here and we spent 4 or 5 days here. We really like it in this area, and we were in no hurry to get back home. And that is as far as we'll get this video. So I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. After our 12-day run from Wrightsville Beach all the way up to Hampton, Virginia, it was time to take a break, and the puppy dogs and I, we ended up staying in Hampton for about 10 days. We were waiting for good weather to make our first run up the bay. Our first run is the most critical, and we were just tired. And we're fair weather travelers, so we hung out right next to the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel for a while, and it was great. The weather was nice most of the time. The puppy dogs were living their best life. We got out and we did some dinghy rides. We went every day for a dinghy ride, and there's a free dock that you can go to, so we got to go for walks, and even caught Neptune napping a few times. He should have been on duty, but even I gave him a little vacation. Hey y'all, just thought I'd give you a quick update. There are a lot of us waiting here. We are still in Hampton, Virginia, at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and we're just waiting for good wind to make our way up the bay. And tomorrow, that wind is finally going to arrive. So we're taking off early tomorrow morning. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and there's one more coming. So there are 15 of us here waiting, and I think tomorrow morning a lot of these guys will head out with us. So we're just gonna go to bed early and hopefully get up tomorrow probably around 2 o'clock in the morning, and hope to be on the road by 5. So hope y'all are well, and we are excited to get back on the road again tomorrow morning. Alrighty, talk to you later. Bye-bye. We got up around 2 a.m. the next morning and started preparing for the trip from Hampton all the way up to Deltaville. And this is around 45 miles. It is the longest trip that we make in our entire run from Delaware City down to Florida. And it is one of the more stressful. I'll talk about the conditions here in a minute, but we did leave well before first light. We wanted to get on the road just in case anything went wrong, and it would give us a little bit of extra time. So we left before first light, and this part of the bay you can navigate no problem in the dark. The channel markers are all lit up, everything's well lit. You don't really have to worry about hitting any fish pots or crab pots until you get a couple of hours up the bay, and that's only if you go rogue and you bushwhack. We do bushwhack almost the entire way up the bay. We do go outside of the quote-unquote navigation channels. Number one, it just keeps you away from large container vessels, which throw off really big wake, and it's not pleasant to be around them. And also, it saves tons of time. So this trip, I believe we shaved off like 8 miles just by bushwhacking, and it's completely safe to do it. We try to go only places that are 12 feet or deeper, And, you know, you do have to be vigilant because there are crab pots, fish pots all over the place. So you do have to be a little more alert, but it's totally safe to do. We've never hit anything that I have known about or ever seen any signs of damage. So, and lots of people do it. Almost everyone bushwhacks. Some people will stay in the navigable channels, but most people go outside of them. When we navigate this stretch of Chesapeake Bay, this is the most critical stretch, and it's, you know, we have very specific condition requirements to do this portion of the journey. The weather here can get really bad, and it can get really rough really quickly. So, and we have been caught in really bad conditions here before. I thought I killed a couple of dogs a few years ago. I think the title of that video is Hell Ride to Hampton, but pretty much everything got destroyed downstairs. It was so rough. We had 5-foot waves. It was just brutal. And the wind projection for that day was supposed to be less than 5 knots, which obviously wasn't true. But, you know, you do have to rely on the wind reports. The wind projections are so critical, and, you know, sometimes they're just wrong, and that really sucks, especially when you're in a bad spot. So I put together a little drawing here, and this just shows the boat. It's a really bad view, but let's say you're looking down on it from above, and the bow is at the top of the page. So these red zones, we really don't like wind from those. So it's about 30 degrees off of each side. So there's about a 60 degree cone coming off the front of the boat, and if the wind is coming hitting us that much on the nose, A, I can't use the head sail, and B, just the wind and the waves, they basically reduce our speed down to below a knot, so it doesn't even make sense to be out when the wind is coming from that direction. And when the wind is coming from the rear, it's a much narrower cone. It's only about 10 degrees on each side, and excuse me, when the wind is coming from that direction, we really can't use the head sail either, because, you know, any steering input, especially if there are waves, you know, you're going side to side a little bit, you know, when the waves roll up from underneath you from behind, and you just can't thread that needle to keep your sail or the wind on one side of the boat or the other. Now, if we had a whisker pole is designed to hold your head sail on one side of the boat. We don't have one, and the first time I saw a whisker pole, I'm like, what in the hell would you use that for? But now I am well aware of what you would use that for. So when you're running downwind and the wind is directly behind you, it's really hard to use your head sail, because the wind wants to switch sides, and then your sail is constantly being dragged from the port to the starboard, back to the port, and you just can't use it. So that's really frustrating. And also, waves rolling up from behind can be really uncomfortable too. I don't like those conditions, just don't care for it. And like I said, we're fair weather travelers. We like our wind on the beam or any of the rest of the white on the side. We can deal with all of that. Under those conditions, whether it's from the east or the west, we can use the head sail. That gives us such a boost in speed, and also the waves are much more manageable. If the waves are coming directly from the front, we pogo up and down, and then our speed is reduced to less than a knot, and it's a non-starter. So, and also we prefer, because we stick to the western shore of the bay almost all of the way up, we do prefer that the wind is blowing from the west to the east. That also minimizes wave height. So it's a very specific set of conditions that we look for specifically for this stretch. Now, we'll never ever go up the bay when the wind is blowing directly in our face, because we just can't get anywhere. And in this section just north of Hampton is Potomac Bay, and I have had some people comment in past years that, you know, I say there's really nowhere that we can anchor between Hampton and Deltaville, and and I've had people say you must not know what you're talking about. There are tons of anchorages there, and that's very true. There are hundreds of anchorages in the Potomac Bay area, but because of the conditions that we require, specifically the wind blowing from west to east, under those conditions, if we were to turn and try to get somewhere in Mob Jack Bay to anchor, it would take us a minimum of 5 to 7 hours going less than a knot to get to those anchorages, and that just makes it not worth it. So given the conditions that we want, it just makes more sense for us to go directly from Hampton to Deltaville. And I believe it's around 45 miles when we bushwhack. It is a long run. It's our longest run, and our most stressful run, because basically once we start it, we can't stop. Now, if we got out in the bay and it was hellacious, the wind projection was clearly very wrong, then we could turn around and go back. That would be it. But once you get, 10 miles or more into the trip, it really becomes difficult to turn around at that point. So now if the weather was really, really bad, then we would have to do something. But, since I've narrowed down our conditions of when we can travel, over the years I've tightened up what I deem as acceptable, and it's really kind of insulated us from those occurrences. So anyway, that's probably more than you ever wanted to know, but there it is. And just one more comment on the wind. I realized I didn't address wind speed, so we do like to go out when it's less than 15 knots. Now this day, I talked a lot about using the head sail, but this day the wind was blowing from behind one of our rear quadrants. They've got terms for all of these, but I don't know. I'm not a term person. The wind was blowing from behind, and because of our speed, that gave us an apparent wind of 0. So we couldn't use our head sail just because there was no wind, because we were moving just as fast and in the same direction as the wind was blowing. So we do like 15 knots or less. Like I said, if it was on the beam, we could have used it, but it was from behind, so we couldn't. But it made for a nice day of travel. You can tell the waves weren't very large. If you've got 15 knots of wind in the lower bay, and if it's blowing down the bay or up the bay, those waves can get really big really quick. And once you get above about a 2.5 foot wave, people go out in it all the time, but it's just not for me. I don't like beating up and down and being thrown around. That's just not our style. So, and the thing that really kills you in the bay is not the wave height, but the period of the waves. Out in the ocean, you've got 20-foot waves. You see photos, these 12-foot waves, you can't see anything but a wall of water all the way around you. And those aren't so bad because the period between the waves is a lot longer. If you've got a 2.5 foot, 3-foot wave that's hitting you every 2 seconds, it's a big difference than a 12-foot wave, every 15 seconds. Those short periods between the waves, in the bay, they just really beat you around. So, people go out there all the time in all conditions, and hey, knock yourself out. Every boat is different. Some people, I've seen boats that can motor 7.5 knots, sailboats, and we absolutely cannot do that. Now, if you can do that, it makes the conditions, it widens up what you can do. So a lot of people might say that my condition windows are too narrow, but I know the limitations of my boat. It is the slowest boat on the east coast of the United States of America, and I'm okay with that. Now that I've gotten used to what we can and can't do, it's perfectly fine. I love her. She's the best. So, alrighty.
I'm so far away from home, in this desert of regrets. Never thought that I would have to let you go. Tell me, how can I forget? If I could travel back in time, I'd lay a blanket full of stars to brighten up the darkness of our sleepless nights. I'd find a way to make you smile. But
And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.